Hello everyone. Today's story is going to be about snails. So instead of reading a story today, we're going to read an information book and we're going to learn lots and lots of facts about this mini beast that we have been talking about all week, and it is a snail. So we're going to learn lots of exciting facts about snails. So let's see what's inside the book. Get our listening hands ready before we start. So are you ready? It's listening time. It's listening time. Shh. On the first page, there's a lovely spiral shape on the snail. Snails have shells. Something is hiding in this shell. Can you guess what it is? Surprise! This is a snail. And when I went into my garden this morning, it was very wet, and in my garden, can you see on the leaf here, there is a snail. If I very carefully pick up the snail, you'll be able to see the snail's shell and the spiral pattern on the shell. And inside, because he's a little bit frightened, I think, because I've taken it out of the garden, then his soft body is inside the shell. It's hiding inside the shell. So I'll pop it back in the jar, make sure that it's safe, and then I can carry on and reading you the book, the information book all about snails, and we'll learn lots of exciting things together. Snails have soft bodies, slimy bodies, and on their backs they have a hard shell. So a soft, slimy body and a hard shell. And the snail moves slowly along the leaf. There are lots and lots of different snails, and this book is going to tell us about some of the different snails that you can find. So many snails have round spiral shells, but some snails have shells that are long and pointed. They've still got the spiral pattern, but instead of being completely round, they are long and pointy. And this sea snail has a spiky shell. Sea snails live in the salty ocean. Where else do snails live? And it says here that some of the sea snails' shells are very colourful. This one looks very, very bright and colourful, doesn't it? Really pretty colours. Freshwater snails live in ponds and rivers and streams. Freshwater is not salty. So the water that we have in the ponds and the water that comes out of the taps isn't salty, but the water in the oceans and the seas, they are salty. So it's another kind of snail that this one lives in fresh water. And I've got lots of these types of snails in my pond where I found those tadpoles that I showed you when we were doing Zoom last week. Land snails live in forests, trees and gardens, and some live on mountains or in deserts. So this is the same kind of snail that I found in my garden, and you can really see very, very clearly the beautiful spiral pattern on the snail's shell. Snails make slime. This land snail is leaving behind a slimy trail, and this trail is made of mucus. A tiny sand snail creeps across a leaf. He's leaving this slimy trail here along the leaf. Often when I go out into my garden and I can see on my path, I know if the snails have been around because they leave that slimy silvery trail that I can follow to look for the snails. The mucus trail helps the snail move. It's like a slippery road, and then the snail slides over it easily. Because the pavements are very bumpy and they're very hard, the snail would find it very difficult to slide over the top of the concrete or the slabs in the garden or on the road or on the paths. But if it has this slippery mucus that comes out of the snail, then it makes it much smoother and easier for the snail to move across the ground. A snail moves along its flat bottom. This body part looks like a belly, but in fact it's called the foot of the snail. A snail has one flat foot that helps it move. At the front is the head. Most land snails have 4 tentacles on their heads. Let's see if we can find the snail's 4 tentacles. There's definitely 2 in this one that we can see clearly, but if we look on this picture here, you can see there are 2 long ones and then 2 shorter ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 long tentacles and 2 short tentacles. Look closely at the ends of the 2 long tentacles, and you can see 2 black dots, and these are the snail's eyes. So if we go back to our picture here and we look at the snail here, can you see on the end, you can just see 2 little black dots on the end of those tentacles, on the long tentacles. So the long tentacles with a black dot on the top, and those are the snail's eyes. A snail can only see dark and light. It uses its 2 shortest tentacles to feel where it is going. So I suppose they're a bit like its hands. So the 2 short tentacles are like the snail's hands, that it can feel its way around, and the 2 long tentacles with the little black dots on the top are the snail's eyes. So 2 eyes and 2 hands that it can feel with. The snail's mouth is near the front of its head. You can see it on this picture here, look, underneath, and that's what it uses to munch away at the plants in the garden. Most land snails eat plants, but some of them eat animals. Snails stay safe. Snails look for food in the damp, dark places. They try to stay out of the dry and the sunny places. Do you know why that is? Let's find out. A snail will die if its body gets too dry, but it can go inside its shell to stay cool and moist. So the snail likes to be out, especially when it's been raining, and last week there was lots and lots of rain. So if the snail comes out, it likes to come out when it's raining and particularly when it's dark. Those are the 2 things that it likes best. And if it does get very, very hot, then he hides inside his shell to keep himself moist, because the sunshine dries out the snail's skin and then it dies. Some land snails hibernate in the cold winter months. The snails go into a deep sleep, and the mucus seals their shells shut. So when it's winter time, they crawl inside their shell, and then the mucus that is normally what they use to make the trail on the floor, they use it to close off the entrance into their shell so that no predators can come and take them. And the birds are the things that like to come and eat the snail. So if they seal it off, then the birds can't see them, and so they're kept safe inside. Do you remember that word hibernate? We had it and we talked about it at the beginning of the nursery year, and we talked about other animals that hibernate. Do you remember I told you in the autumn time that lots of the hedgehogs, they hibernate? And we also talked about nocturnal animals as well, didn't we? I suppose the snail is a bit of a nocturnal animal because he prefers to come out at night time, although we do see them in the daytime sometime as well. And I know Aaron the other day when he was out on his bicycle, his mummy took a picture of him and he found a snail. So I hope this week you'll be able to find lots of snails either in the park or in the garden when you're out and about. Are these snails hibernating? No, these ones are just hiding. They're hiding from predators. And predators means another animal that would like to come and eat them. So predators are animals that hunt and eat other animals. Many predators like to eat snails. And hedgehogs particularly like to eat snails. Now, snails lay eggs, just like the spider that we learnt about last week that laid eggs. And this snail is laying eggs in a hole in the ground. Snails hide their eggs from those predators. And inside the eggs are baby snails. All these eggs are little tiny snail eggs, and they've been dug under the ground to keep them safe. And they're hidden under a leaf. The eggs hatch, and out come tiny snails. This tiny snail here, look, has just hatched, so it's very, very tiny. And baby snails, when they hatch, here they are very hungry. And first, they eat their eggshell. And then they look for tasty, green, luscious plants to eat. A young snail eats and eats and eats until it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And its shell grows bigger too. And the baby snails, they hitch a ride on their parents' back. So just like if your mummy or daddy picks you up and carries you, then the mummy or the daddy snail can carry the baby snail on their back. They can stick themselves onto the back of the mummy or daddy shell and they can have a little ride. This slimy snail is all grown up. And there's the snail at the end, and it shows you the parts of the snail. Just like we learned about the parts of the spider last week, then this week we can learn about the body parts of the spider. Sorry, of the snail. So this is the shell. This is the foot. That's the slimy bit that the snail uses to move along the ground. That's called his foot. And then the long tentacles. What did I tell you the black dots on the end of the long tentacles were called? That's right, they're called their eyes. And then the two short tentacles, which is how they feel their way along, so a bit like your hands. And then the mouth is at the bottom, so that when it moves along the ground, it can find the food and munch away on the leaves and the plants in the garden. And here it says that snails live all over the world. They come in lots and different shapes and sizes. One of the longest snails can be found in East Africa. Some snails can live to be 20 years old. Snails that live on the land tend to chew their food very loudly. And if you are near a large land snail, you may be able to hear it crunching and munching away. So lots and lots of different facts about snails that we've learnt in that book. And I've certainly learned lots of new things about snails today that I didn't know. So I'm going to go back out into my garden now and see if I can find some more snails. So perhaps if you want to go into your garden, you could find some snails today, just like the one that I've got in here. I wonder if he's just coming out a little bit actually. No, he's still stuck underneath, he's stuck on the leaf. He's not going to show me those lovely tentacles today. But I won't keep him here for too long because that would be a little bit cruel, and he wants to go outside and to be able to move around more. So I'm going to go and let him out in my garden now to make sure that he's safe and he's free. So if you find some snails, you could send me some pictures, you could take some photographs, and then you could ask Mummy or Daddy to email them to me, and we can share all our snail stories together. Take care and happy snail hunting. Bye-bye.